Welcome! In this How Do I video for Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2013 R2, I will explain how to create an advanced extensibility control by using Windows Media Player as an example. I'm Vyakoslav Babic. I'm an MVP for NAV, and I have created this video in cooperation with Platan. At the end of this video, I'll have Windows Media Player integrated into a page object. The objective of this video is to explain the manifest and resource files and how they interact with CAL, and to create an advanced extensibility control that plays a video through Windows Media Player. I'll do this in 5 steps. In the first step, I will define the interface and explain how it works. All extensibility controls, regardless if they have to work only in the client for Windows or if they have to support both web and Windows clients, must be defined as class library projects. So here I have one class library C# project. The first step is to reference the extensibility framework. This actually enables the application to interact with Microsoft Dynamics NAV because it has all the interfaces and all of the classes which new extensibility methods must support to actually enable you to interact with NAV. So it is the DLL that I'm referencing is actually Microsoft.dynamics.framework.ui.extensibility.dll, which can be found in the role-tailored client folder. The next step, which makes everything simpler, is to simply call using Microsoft.dynamics.framework.ui.extensibility. This makes it possible for me to actually tap into Microsoft Dynamics NAV functionality. In NAV 2013 and as well as NAV 2009 R2, when extensibility controls were supported, you could actually inherit a class from a parent class which actually enabled your class to be embedded into the RTC client for Windows. With NAV 2013 R2, we actually, instead of classes, can use interfaces. So here I'm going to say interface, and I'm going to call it Windows Media Player. Actually, Windows Media Player to be consistent with the naming convention for interfaces. And by saying that I'm exporting this control add-in by attaching this attribute, Windows Media Player Control, I'm actually making this visible, or making this usable from within a client. What is the difference between the interface and the class? The difference is that the class actually defines the functionality. It defines the structure of the control, and it defines the functionality itself. So everything is implemented within the class. Whereas within the interface, we are only defining a contract. We are defining how Microsoft Dynamics NAV Windows client can actually call into the functionality of a control, but it doesn't define the functionality itself. The functionality itself must be defined elsewhere. And this elsewhere with extensibility controls is actually within the manifest file. In the next step, I'll add events and methods to the interface. My media player interface is going to have 2 members. First member is going to be an event, so I'm going to declare an event, which is application event handler. I'm going to call it control add-in ready. This event will fire whenever my NAV is ready to actually interact with a control. So when the script, the JavaScript code, actually completes setting up the control, NAV is actually invoked and actually triggered so that I can respond to that event. I can actually call the functionality of the control. The next thing is I'm going to add a method. So it's going to be void, and I'm going to call it load video. This is going to be a Windows Media Player example. So I'm going to pass the URL of the video here. So when my control add-in is ready, I'm simply going to call this load video method and invoke this URL. So let me actually make this thing visible from the application. So when I simply declare these members of an interface, I'm not automatically making sure that this is uh, visible from within NAV. NAV actually will not see either the event or the video. So I must attach the application visible attribute, which makes sure that these two members are actually visible from within NAV. In the third step, I will sign, build, and deploy the assembly, and then register the control add-in in Microsoft Dynamics NAV. So let me compile this now. I will first make sure that this is signed with a strong name. So I'm going to signing. Again, I'm signing the assembly with a strong key, Windows Media Player. Let me pull my simple trick with the post-build event. So I'm going to call sn.exe -t, and then I'm going to use target path macro. I'll save all, and I'm going to build this, and it has succeeded. I will also show the output, so I have my public key token here. Now I'm actually ready to set this up as a control in Microsoft Dynamics NAV. So I'll open my access my DLL, which is here. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste that into Microsoft Dynamics NAV role-tailored client add-ins folder. My next step is going to be to configure the control add-in within the role-tailored client for Windows. So I'm creating a new control add-in. I'm going to use the same name as I have used in my control add-in export attribute. Again, I'm pasting this, and I have to use the public key token, and I'm pasting this. So this makes it possible for me to actually reference this object. In the fourth step, I will create a page that consumes the control add-in. I'm creating a new blank page, and I'm creating a new media player field, which is going to be called WM control, and here I'm assigning as a control add-in, I'm assigning this new Windows Media Player control. When I do that, what happens is that when I take a look at the code, any event that I have in my interface, which also is application visible, becomes published as an event within my CAL code. And also, if I'm trying to access my current page, then controls and then WM control, I can see that I have methods load video, which is again any of the application visible methods declared within the interface. However, if I run this page now, if I save this and use 50,000 Windows Media Player example, and if I run this page, it will not work because there is no implementation for this interface. So I actually have to provide the implementation, which is by using the manifest file. In my final step, I will create the manifest, implement the methods, and invoke the events to interact with NAV. So to create the manifest file, I'm going to add a new item, which is going to be data and then XML, which is going to be called manifest.xml. I'm adding this to my solution, and within manifest I'm going to declare the necessary contents. So first I have to use script URL to reference, actually this is script URLs. So the script URL of the jQuery, which makes it so much simpler to actually work with the application. Then I'm going to specify some sizing properties for my control. So I'm going to use requested height. I'm going to make it 360 character high, and requested width, which is going to be 640 I have a problem here. Okay, I have fixed it now. The next thing that I'm going to do is horizontal stretch. I'm going to make it stretchable if necessary, and also vertical stretch is going to be true, so I can resize the control if necessary. The other thing that I'm going to do is to add a script, and within this script I'm actually going to write the code which runs when my control add-in loads in both the Windows client and the web client for NAV. So the script must be embedded in a C data section, so I'm adding a C data section, and then within this block I'm going to write the script that actually runs when the application is loaded. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one simple call to jQuery, which is document. So when document is ready, I am going to respond to this event from a separate function. So this function is an embedded function from which I'm going to call another function that I'm going to declare here, which is going to be function initialize control. Here I may pass the control ID. This control ID is going to be used as a parent, basically the parent control to which I'm adding my new content. Whenever creating a new control add-in for NAV, this control ID is actually called, let me actually call this initialize control, and then I'm passing this control add-in. So this is the name of the control. This is the ID of the control that is the parent of all the content that you put into your control add-in. So here I'm going to locate this control by using jQuery. So I'm going to specify that so I'm calling this control ID and then append WM player. This is going to be my HTML code that will contain the contents of my Windows Media Player control. So I'm going to declare it like this. Actually, it's going to be simple quotes, and then in there I'm going to paste the content that I need. So what does this code do? It basically has an HTML object tag with ID WM player with class ID. This is actually the class ID of the ActiveX control for the Windows Media Player, and then width and height and the type. And also for application compatibility with other browsers, I have to call the embed type, which and basically I'm here referencing the same thing. I'm just going to call it WM player here as well, so it has to have the same ID. So I'm also going to have my reference to this Windows Media Player object, so I'm going to call it, it starts with null, but here I'm just going to say that WM Player object is document get element by ID, and then I'm referencing the ID of WM Player. So here I have my initialize control, which calls this function, which actually makes Windows Media Player object visible within the application. So I can actually try to see if this thing so far works. So I'm going to create a new resource file. So I'm simply zipping the manifest into a zip file. then I'm importing the resource into my Windows Media Player control, and I'm trying to run my page. So here I have a Windows Media Player object embedded. So let me now actually do some other work to load my content and to actually script something into here. So for that I'm actually going to call an event from within JavaScript code. So from here, from within manifest, when control is initialized, I'm going to call this event in NAV, and from this event I'm going to call back another function here in the manifest, which is going to be the function defined within the interface, which is going to be load video. So I can actually start with creating this function here. So within the manifest I'm creating function load video. It must have exactly the same name and parameters as my interface function. So basic description of the function must match. So here I have URL, and then from within here I'm actually going to script against this Windows Media Player object, which is stored now in this variable. So let me write that part first. So here I will start with actually it's going to be quicker if I just copy this, and Windows Media Player dot object dot URL is going to be my first parameter, and it's going to be the URL that I'm passing from outside. Then I'm going to use the UI mode of none to hide all of these controls around my basically this thing, the Windows Media Player controls. I don't need them. Then I'm going to say that it's going to stretch to fit. Then the next thing is going to be to auto start this. Actually it's settings, and then settings dot set mode. I'm going to make it loop, and then I'm going to play it at 50 of volume. So this is my load video function. My next thing is to actually invoke this event. So I must invoke control add-in ready event. So for that I have another function. So here after I have initialized, I'm going to call the event. So the scripting framework of extensibility controls actually includes facilities to invoke events from the CL event. So here I will just call Microsoft.dynamics.nav.invoke extensibility method, and it must have the same name as the event. So here it's control add-in ready. So I'm going to put this control add-in ready, and it can accept null as a parameter. So here what happens is when I initialize the control, I'm actually letting NAV know I'm now ready to do whatever necessary. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to invoke this load method. So I'm calling load video. Sorry, I've made a mistake here. So control load video, and then I'm going to pass a URL of. As the URL, I'm simply going to use another video from How Do I Serious. So I'm saving this. I'm saving the manifest. I'm packing the manifest into the zip file, the resource file. I'm importing it into my control add-in. And then I'm running my page. And my page actually loads my How Do I video. And that's all. I hope you find this video demonstration useful. Have fun creating your own advanced extensibility controls. and I'm looking forward to see you in another How Do I video for Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2013 R2.